The future of Bronny James with the Los Angeles Lakers is anything but settled, with his father LeBron James having departed the franchise to sign with the Philadelphia 76ers. The younger James now finds himself in an uncertain position heading into the 2026-27 season. The Lakers still have the option to keep him on the roster, but given the significant roster overhaul currently underway in Los Angeles, his survival through the offseason would come as a genuine surprise to most league observers. A newly proposed three-team trade scenario has emerged that would send Bronny James to Philadelphia to reunite with his father. According to the framework laid out by Heavy Sports, the deal would involve the Lakers, the 76ers, and the Chicago Bulls. Under this proposal, Los Angeles would ship Bronny to Philadelphia while also sending Jake LaRavia and Dalton Knecht, along with second-round picks in 2031 and 2032, to the Chicago Bulls. In return, the Lakers would receive Jalen Smith from Chicago and Jabari Walker from Philadelphia. The structure of the deal makes a certain kind of roster logic. Both LaRavia and Knecht have been discussed internally as movable pieces throughout this offseason, and packaging them together into a three-team framework gives Los Angeles the opportunity to clear two roster spots while adding a stretch big and a versatile wing in return. Smith, a 6'10" forward with shooting range, and Walker, a young forward with developmental upside, would slide into rotational roles around Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, the cornerstones of the new era Lakers. From a financial standpoint, Bronny is not a complicated player to move. The Lakers guaranteed his salary for the 2026-27 season at just $2.3 million, a figure that barely registers on a team navigating the luxury tax landscape. The challenge is not his contract, but rather his basketball value. A guard with his level of production at this stage of his career does not typically command strong return value in trade negotiations. Including him as part of a broader package, as this proposal does, is precisely the mechanism that makes moving him plausible at all. The idea of a father-son reunion in Philadelphia became an immediate talking point the moment LeBron inked his deal with the 76. However, LeBron's camp was quick to shut down any suggestion that his move to Philly had anything to do with his son's situation. LeBron stated publicly that family considerations played no role in his decision to leave Los Angeles, though the ambiguity of those remarks has done little to stop speculation from circulating throughout the league and media circles. For the Sixers, taking on Bronny would likely require a family angle. He is not the kind of player Philadelphia would typically pursue based on merit alone at this stage of his career. His profile as a third-year guard who projects as a deep rotational piece does not match the sort of talent a contending franchise typically chases in the trade market. That said, the situation around LeBron's arrival in Philadelphia is anything but conventional, and roster decisions in that market could be influenced by factors beyond pure basketball calculus. From Bronny's perspective, the picture is complicated. Neither staying in Los Angeles nor following his father to Philadelphia guarantees him the development environment he needs. Both franchises carry championship aspirations and star-heavy rosters, which means minutes will always be precious and opportunities for growth limited. Some league observers have noted that a move to a rebuilding team, where Bronny could receive consistent playing time and genuine responsibility, might actually serve his long-term development better than staying in the orbit of a contender, regardless of whether that contender is the Lakers or the 76ers. If the Sixers show no interest and LeBron's camp does not push for the move, the Lakers will then need to identify other suitors willing to absorb Bronny as a roster piece. That market may be thin. If no trade emerges before the start of the regular season, the most likely outcome becomes Los Angeles simply retaining him for at least one more year, with the roster situation revisited again next off-season. The clock is ticking, but nothing is finalized, and Bronny James' next chapter remains very much unwritten. The broader context is worth noting. Dalton Knecht, included in this proposal, was one of Los Angeles' more intriguing young prospects after being selected in the first round of the 2024 NBA draft. The internal debate over whether to develop him or use him as a trade chip has been ongoing. The same applies to LaRavia, a versatile forward who has shown flashes of competence but has not locked down a permanent role. Packaging both alongside Bronny and draft capital in a three-team framework that returns a stretch big and a young wing would represent a calculated roster decision. And whether it happens or not, the Bronny James storyline remains one of the offseason's most emotionally charged and unresolved questions. Meanwhile, the Lakers front office has made clear its overriding priority: building a contender around Luka Doncic as swiftly as possible. Every roster move this summer will ultimately be judged through that lens. The Los Angeles Lakers have been busy reshaping their roster around Luka Doncic this offseason, and the search for reliable frontcourt depth continues. One name that has hovered around Lakers conversations in recent weeks is Kyle Kuzma, a player who began his NBA career in Los Angeles and who many believe still has the right profile to contribute alongside the team's new franchise cornerstone. However, the latest reports indicate that a quick reunion will not be happening anytime soon. According to Clutch Points reporter Brett Siegel, speaking on the Clutch Scoops podcast, Kuzma is expected to remain with the Milwaukee Bucks for the foreseeable future rather than entering the buyout market. Siegel mentioned Kuzma in a broader discussion about veteran players whose names have surfaced as potential buyout candidates in the lead up to the new season. The conclusion was clear. Kuzma is not going anywhere voluntarily right now. He is staying put in Milwaukee, at least through the start of the 2026-27 campaign. That does not mean his name disappears from Lakers-related conversations entirely. Siegel was explicit that Kuzma will remain a viable trade asset throughout the season. Milwaukee had interest in moving Kuzma during the previous season, and with that situation still unresolved, it is entirely possible the Bucks revisit trade discussions once the new year tips off. For Los Angeles, that means keeping a close eye on Milwaukee's roster decisions as the season progresses. Kuzma has a personal connection to the Lakers organization that makes him an appealing hypothetical fit. He was selected by Los Angeles in the first round of the 2017 NBA draft and quickly established himself as one of the team's more exciting young players during his early seasons. He played a meaningful role during the Lakers' 2020 NBA championship run, contributing off the bench during a playoff run that culminated in the franchise's 17th title. That pedigree alone gives him a certain credibility as a player who understands winning environments and knows how to perform when the stakes are elevated. After being traded to the Washington Wizards as part of the Russell Westbrook deal, Kuzma reinvented himself as a primary scoring option. In Washington, he took on a larger role than he ever had in Los Angeles, averaging significant minutes and developing his offensive repertoire as the team's centerpiece. While the Wizards were not a competitive squad during those years, Kuzma's individual production was notable enough to maintain his reputation as a legitimate rotation contributor at the NBA level, capable of providing scoring punch and versatile forward play. His eventual move to Milwaukee placed him in a different context, a winning environment where the Bucks have long been one of the Eastern Conference's more serious contenders. But the fit in Milwaukee has had its complications, and those complications are precisely why his name has circulated in trade talks for the second consecutive year. The Bucks have continued to reshape their own roster, and Kuzma's role and long-term place on that team remains in question. For the Lakers, the appeal is straightforward. Los Angeles needs wing and forward depth capable of stretching the floor and contributing on both ends without requiring a massive roster sacrifice to acquire. Kuzma fits that profile reasonably well. He is 31 years old, experienced, versatile enough to play multiple positions, and knows the organization intimately. He would not be a headline acquisition, but he could represent exactly the type of experienced, competent depth that a team building around Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves would benefit from having available. The question is whether Milwaukee will ask for something the Lakers cannot or will not move, or whether a deal can be structured that makes sense for both sides. Until that conversation happens in earnest, likely during the regular season if at all, Kuzma will remain a Bucks player and a name to monitor from a distance. Los Angeles will need to be patient, but the possibility of a return to purple and gold for the former Laker is far from dead. A Kuzma reunion would carry symbolic weight for the Lakers organization. He was part of the 2020 championship team in Los Angeles and left as a young player still searching for his ceiling, returning now at 31 with seasons of primary scoring responsibility behind him. He would be a more complete version of the player the organization once developed from scratch. For a franchise recalibrating around Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, that kind of experienced, reliable depth matters. The path back to Los Angeles is not guaranteed, but it remains very much open, and both sides are aware of the fit. Milwaukee's offseason has been turbulent following the departure of Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the Bucks are in full transition mode. That context only increases the likelihood that Kuzma will eventually be available via trade. His offensive versatility, perimeter shooting, and experience in high-stakes situations make him the kind of player multiple contenders will track throughout the year. For the Lakers, patience may ultimately be rewarded. The Los Angeles Lakers will not be adding Klay Thompson to their roster, at least not in the immediate term. According to Clutch Points reporter Tomer Azerly, speaking on the Clutch Scoops podcast, the Lakers had been mentioned around Thompson's name earlier in the offseason process, but the franchise now appears to have moved on. The window for a potential deal between Los Angeles and the veteran shooting guard has effectively closed, for now. Thompson's situation entering this offseason has been one of the NBA's more intriguing storylines. The four-time NBA champion and one of the most accomplished shooters in league history signed with the Dallas Mavericks in the belief that he would be competing alongside Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving for a championship. But Dallas' plans collapsed dramatically when Doncic was dealt to the Los Angeles Lakers in a blockbuster trade that reshaped the Western Conference. The departure of the franchise's cornerstone player left Thompson's role in Dallas looking very different from what he had originally signed up for. Then came a further blow. Kyrie Irving suffered an ACL injury, stripping away yet another pillar of what was supposed to be Dallas' competitive core. With two of the three primary reasons for Thompson's arrival in Dallas now gone, his long-term future with the Mavericks has become murky at best. His name has circulated widely in trade and buyout discussions, and the question of where the 36-year-old ends up has become one of the season's outstanding roster storylines. One thing Dallas has made clear through industry sources is that it does not intend to simply release Thompson and receive nothing in return. According to Brett Siegel of Clutch Points, neither Thompson nor his representatives have approached the Mavericks about a buyout arrangement. The initiative has not come from the players' side. From Dallas' perspective, the team's preference is straightforward. They want to trade him, not lose him for free. The Mavericks view Thompson's contract as a leverageable asset, something that can be used to facilitate another roster move that benefits the franchise's reconstruction after the Doncic trade. The organization, in Siegel's words, is essentially holding that contract as an inflated trade exception to extract value from another team. That dynamic makes a buyout unlikely in the short term. For Thompson to hit the open market and sign wherever he chooses, either the Mavericks would have to change course on their current stance, or a protracted standoff would have to wear down both sides. Neither scenario appears imminent. Dallas holds the leverage in this situation, and the franchise does not appear inclined to surrender it voluntarily. So who are the realistic landing spots? Azerly identified two teams as the most logical destinations. The Golden State Warriors, where Thompson spent the first 13 years of his career and won 4 championships alongside Stephen Curry, would presumably be very open to a reunion. The chemistry, the familiarity, and the nostalgia factor all point to Golden State as an obvious fit. Whether the Warriors have the financial flexibility and the willingness to meet Dallas' asking price in a trade is the question that would determine whether that reunion becomes reality. The Miami Heat represent the other credible option. Miami has long valued elite shooting, and Thompson, even at this stage of his career, remains a credible floor, spacer, and off-ball threat capable of punishing defensive attention paid to other players. Siegel noted that the Heat look like a viable trade partner and pointed to young forward Nikola Jovic as a player whose salary closely mirrors Thompson's current deal, potentially making a trade framework easier to construct. For the Lakers, the door is not necessarily locked forever. The language used by Azerly was measured. The Lakers are probably out of it now, suggesting current circumstances rather than a permanent stance. As the offseason continues and Los Angeles assesses its remaining roster needs around Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, circumstances could shift. But as of today, the most likely path for Klay Thompson runs through Dallas trade talks, with Miami or Golden State waiting at the other end. It is also worth considering Thompson's own motivation. At 36 years old and with 4 championships on his resume, he is not a player who needs to settle for a secondary role out of desperation. He still views himself as a contributor capable of helping a team win. A reunion with Stephen Curry in Golden State would carry obvious emotional appeal and the comfort of a proven system. Miami, meanwhile, would offer a winning culture under a coaching staff that has maximized veterans before. Either destination would give Thompson a better chance at adding to his legacy than remaining stuck in Dallas under a franchise still sorting out what it wants to be after the seismic shift of losing Luka Doncic. The final destination remains unclear, but the direction appears to be pointing toward resolution sooner rather than later. The NBA world is watching closely. One thing is certain: Thompson will not be a Maverick much longer. The only real debate is whether he leaves via trade or whether Dallas eventually blinks and agrees to a buyout. Either way, a new chapter awaits.